The message came in just after sunrise. One line, no explanation. "Don't come to our family dinner. My wife is against you." That was it. No greeting, no dad. Just a warning, like I was some kind of threat. I read it 3 times before it settled in my chest. Not the words, but what they meant. Because a son doesn't write something like that unless the decision has already been made behind closed doors. And whatever they said about me, it was enough to keep me away from my own grandchildren. I was sitting in my kitchen outside Tulsa, Oklahoma, still wearing the same flannel robe I'd had since my wife, Linda, was alive. The coffee had gone cold in my hand. On the table beside me sat a brown paper bag full of little things I'd bought the day before for the dinner. Coloring books for Ben and Lucy, a lemon pie from the bakery my daughter-in-law claimed to love, and a baseball glove for my youngest grandson, Caleb. I had been looking forward to that evening all week. At 74, a man learns not to expect too much from life, but he still holds on to the small things. A family dinner ought to be one of them. My son, Daniel, hadn't always been like this. There was a time he used to drive out every Sunday with the kids packed in the back seat, shouting before they even hit the porch. Then he married Melissa, and little by little, the visits got shorter, the calls got colder, and every conversation felt like I was being measured for some mistake I hadn't even made yet. Still, I kept showing up. Birthday cards, Christmas checks, babysitting when they needed it. New tires for Daniel's car one winter when he said money was tight. I told myself that was what fathers did. You endure a little disrespect to stay close to your blood. But that message was different. That wasn't distance. That was exile. I called him once, straight to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. 10 minutes later, another text came through. "Please don't make this harder than it already is." I stared at that one so long my eyes watered. Harder for who? For the son shutting his father out? Or for the old man expected to swallow it in silence and disappear before company arrived? By noon, I was angry enough to get dressed. I put on a clean shirt, my good boots, and the old watch Linda gave me on our 30th anniversary. I told myself I was only driving into town to return the pie and take the kids' gifts back. That was the lie. I used to get my keys in my hand. The truth was uglier. I needed to see my son's face. I needed to know what kind of poison had been poured into that house. When I pulled onto their street just before sunset, Daniel's driveway was already full. Cars lined the curb. Laughter drifted from the backyard. My family was 10 yards away, eating, smiling, living, while I sat behind the wheel like a stranger casing the place. Then I saw something through the side gate that made my hands lock around the steering wheel. Melissa was standing by the patio table, holding up a manila folder with my name written across it. I stayed in the car longer than I should have. Engine off, hands still on the wheel, watching through that narrow gap in the fence like a man who didn't belong to his own life anymore. The sun was dropping low, throwing long shadows across their backyard. I could see Daniel moving around the grill, laughing with someone I didn't recognize. The kids were there too. Ben chasing Lucy with a plastic cup, Caleb sitting on the steps, swinging his legs, close enough to touch, and still completely out of reach. But it was that folder in Melissa's hands that held me there. She wasn't just holding it, she was showing it, turning it slightly so the others around the table could see. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the reactions. A woman covered her mouth. Someone leaned in closer. Daniel didn't stop her. He didn't take it away. He just stood there, letting it happen. Something in my chest tightened. I stepped out of the car before I even realized I'd made the decision. Gravel crunched under my boots as I walked up the driveway. No one noticed at first. That's the thing about being pushed out slowly. People stop expecting you. You become invisible long before you're actually gone. I pushed the side gate open. The sound cut through the laughter like a knife. Heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. Daniel froze beside the grill, the smile still hanging awkwardly on his face like he didn't know what expression he was supposed to wear anymore. Melissa didn't lower the folder. If anything, she straightened up. "You shouldn't be here," she said, calm as anything. Not angry, not surprised, just certain. I looked at my son. I tried calling. He didn't answer right away. Just wiped his hands on a towel, eyes darting between me and her like he was waiting for permission to speak. That was the first time I really saw it. How much of him wasn't his anymore? "We sent you a message," he finally said. "Yeah." I nodded slowly. I read it. Silence settled over the yard. Even the kids had stopped moving. Caleb was staring at me now, confused, like he knew something wasn't right but didn't understand why. I took a step closer. "What is that?" I asked, nodding toward the folder. Melissa smiled, but there wasn't anything warm in it. "This?" she said, tapping the cover lightly. "This is information your son deserved to know a long time ago." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "Melissa." "No," she cut him off, still looking at me. "We're not pretending anymore." My stomach dropped. Pretending what? She opened the folder. Papers, copies, printed emails, and something else clipped neatly on top. A photograph, old, faded. And the second I saw it, my legs nearly gave out, because I recognized exactly where it had been taken. And I knew, whatever she was about to say next, was going to tear the last piece of my family apart. I didn't move. Couldn't. My eyes locked onto that photograph like it had reached out and grabbed me by the throat. It was taken years ago. Maybe 20, maybe more. A younger version of me stood beside a woman I hadn't seen in decades. Not my wife. Not Linda. Someone in the yard whispered, "Is that him?" Melissa didn't answer them. She was watching me. "Well," she said, "you recognize it, don't you?" Daniel stepped closer, his voice tight. "Dad, what is this?" I swallowed, but my mouth had gone dry. "Where did you get that?" "That's not what I asked," he snapped, sharper than I'd ever heard him speak to me. The air shifted. This wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a trial. Melissa flipped to the next page. "We found records, old property filings, shared accounts. Names that don't match the story you've been telling for years." I shook my head slowly. "You don't understand." "Then explain it," Daniel cut in. "Right now." I looked at him. Really looked. My boy. The same kid who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during long drives. Now standing across from me like a stranger waiting for me to confess to something he already believed was true. "It's not what you think," I said quietly. Melissa laughed under her breath. "That's always how it starts." She held up another sheet, this one with numbers on it. Bank transfers, dates, amounts. Daniel's face tightened as he read over her shoulder. "These are recent." "Yeah," she said, "very recent." I felt something cold settle into my chest. "So you've been lying to me," he said, looking up. "All this time?" "No," I said firmly. "I never lied to you." "You just didn't tell me," he shot back. "That's not the same thing." "It is when it matters," Melissa said. I took a step forward, lowering my voice. "Daniel, listen to me. There are things in a man's life that don't belong in every conversation, things that happened before you were even—" "Before I was what?" he snapped. "Before I existed? Before I mattered?" "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" The tension was thick now, suffocating. I could feel every pair of eyes on me, waiting, judging. From the corner of my eye, I saw Lucy slowly reach for Caleb's hand. The kids knew. They didn't understand it, but they knew something was breaking. Melissa stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough to make it sharper. "Tell him about her." My heart skipped. Daniel's jaw clenched. "About who?" I didn't answer. Melissa didn't hesitate. "The woman in the photo," she said. "The one your father's been sending money to for years." Silence. Heavy. Absolute. Daniel turned to me slowly, like he was afraid of what he'd see on my face. "Is that true?" he asked. I didn't speak right away. And that was my mistake. Because in that pause, he made up his mind. "You've been supporting another family?" he said, his voice cracking under the weight of it. "No," I said quickly. "It's not like that." "Then what is it?" he exploded. The backyard felt smaller now, like the walls were closing in. I opened my mouth, tried to find the right words, but nothing came out clean enough. Melissa stepped back, folding her arms, satisfied. "That's what I thought," she said quietly. Daniel shook his head, stepping away from me like I'd done something contagious. "I can't believe this," he muttered. "All those times you said you didn't have enough, all those times you acted like you were struggling." "I was helping someone," I said. "Who?" he demanded. I looked down at the photograph again, and for the first time, I realized there was no way out of this without tearing something open that I had kept buried for half my life. But I still wasn't ready to say it. And that hesitation cost me more than I understood in that moment. Because Daniel took another step back, and this time, his voice went cold. "Now I understand why she didn't want you here." I looked up. "She," I repeated. Melissa met my eyes. "My wife," Daniel said quietly. "And after tonight, so do I." I stood there, feeling something inside me give way. Not loudly, not all at once, but like an old beam finally cracking under too much weight. "My wife," he said again, quieter this time. "She told me there were things about you that didn't add up." I let out a slow breath. "And you believed her, without asking me first?" "I am asking you now," he snapped, "and you're not answering." I looked at him, then at the people around us. Neighbors, friends, strangers holding plates of food, pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. My humiliation had become their evening entertainment. Melissa stepped closer to Daniel, her hand lightly resting on his arm. Not comfort, control. "He won't answer," she said softly, "because there's nothing clean about it." "That's not true," I said, sharper than I meant to. "Then say it," Daniel fired back. "Just say it." I hesitated again, and this time I saw it happen in his eyes. Whatever hope he had left, it shut off, like a door slamming. "Unbelievable," he muttered, turning away. "Daniel," I said, stepping toward him. "Don't," he warned, holding up a hand without even looking at me. "Just don't." That hurt more than anything Melissa had said. "I raised you," I said quietly. "I was there every day of your life. You think I'd betray you like that?" He turned back, and there was something raw in his face now. "I don't know what to think anymore." "That's because she's feeding you half a story." Melissa's expression hardened. "Be careful." "No," I said, shaking my head. "You don't get to control this." For the first time, her composure slipped. Just a flicker. Daniel noticed it too. "What does that mean?" he asked, looking between us. I pointed at the folder. "She didn't tell you everything in there." "I showed him enough," Melissa said. "Enough to make me look guilty," I replied. "Not enough to explain why." Daniel's voice dropped. "Then explain it now." I glanced at the kids again. Lucy was pressed against the patio chair, wide-eyed. Caleb hadn't moved at all. Ben was watching me, confused but trying to be brave. This wasn't how they were supposed to see me. I lowered my voice. "Not here." "That's convenient," Melissa said immediately. Daniel didn't take his eyes off me. "Why not here?" "Because some things don't belong in front of an audience," I said. "And definitely not in front of children." Melissa let out a short laugh. "You didn't seem too concerned about boundaries when you were wiring money behind your son's back." "That's enough," I said, my patience finally cracking. The yard went still again. Daniel rubbed his face, pacing once like he was trying to hold himself together. Then he stopped, and when he spoke, his voice was different. Tired, hard. "You're leaving," he said. I blinked. What? You heard me, he said. This isn't the place for this. And honestly, I don't want you here right now. The words landed heavy. Daniel, I started. No, he cut in. You had your chance to explain. You didn't take it. I was trying to protect... Protect who? He snapped. Because it sure wasn't me. That one hit deep. I stood there for a moment, waiting for something in him to soften, for the boy I knew to push through the anger. But he didn't. Melissa stepped back, satisfied again, slipping her arm fully through his. We'll talk another time, she said, like she was granting me permission. I looked at her, then at him. No, I said quietly. We won't. Daniel frowned slightly. What's that supposed to mean? I met his eyes, steady this time. It means the next time we talk, you're going to hear everything. Not pieces, not accusations. The truth. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. But it was already too late, because Melissa tightened her grip on his arm and leaned in just enough to whisper something in his ear. I didn't hear the words, but I saw the effect. His jaw set, and whatever doubt had started to form disappeared. Just go, he said. So I did. I turned, walked back through the gate, down the driveway, and into the quiet of my car. No one followed. No one called after me. As I pulled away, the laughter slowly started again behind me, like I had never been there at all. But halfway down the street, my phone buzzed. A message. Not from Daniel, not from Melissa. A number I hadn't seen in years. I pulled over, stared at the screen, and felt my stomach drop, because the name attached to it was the same one from that photograph. I didn't start the car right away. I just sat there on the side of the road, engine quiet, that message glowing on my phone like something alive. My hands weren't shaking, not anymore. That part had already passed. What I felt now was something heavier, like the kind of truth you spend years burying, finally deciding it's done waiting. I opened it. Daniel deserves to know. You should have told him yourself. No greeting, no warmth. Just the same directness I remembered. Margaret. I hadn't said her name out loud in over 30 years, but it came back easy. Too easy. I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes for a moment. And just like that, I wasn't 74 anymore. I was 39, standing in a hospital hallway that smelled like antiseptic and bad decisions. Margaret wasn't a second family. She never was. She was Daniel's mother's sister, and for a brief, ugly stretch of time, she was the person who helped me keep my life from falling apart when Linda got sick. No one knew how bad it was back then. Not even Daniel. He was too young to understand why his mother kept disappearing into treatments, why the house got quieter, why I started working nights just to keep the bills from swallowing us whole. Margaret stepped in when everything else started slipping. She drove Linda to appointments, stayed overnight when I couldn't, cooked meals, paid for things I couldn't afford to admit I couldn't afford. And somewhere in that chaos, in that exhaustion, lines blurred. It wasn't love. It wasn't even close. It was weakness, one mistake that lasted just long enough to ruin everything if it ever came out. Linda never found out, at least, not in any way she could confirm. And when she passed, I buried that part of my life so deep I convinced myself it had gone with her. But Margaret didn't disappear. Years later, when her life fell apart in ways I won't even try to dress up, I helped her, quietly, the same way she once helped us. Money, mostly. Not because I owed her love. Because I owed her silence. And maybe a little bit of guilt. I opened my eyes. That photograph, it must have been from that time. One of the few that ever existed. Melissa hadn't uncovered some secret second family. She'd uncovered something messier, something human, something ugly enough to twist into whatever story she needed. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Margaret. She came to see me. That made my chest tighten. Of course she did. Melissa didn't stumble onto this. She went digging, and when she found a thread, she pulled until it bled. I typed back slowly. "What did you tell her?" The reply came almost immediately. "Enough." I stared at that word for a long time. Enough to destroy me, or enough to protect herself. With Margaret, it could be either. I looked back down the street. Toward Daniel's house I could no longer see. He thought I'd betrayed him, thought I'd built some hidden life behind his back while pretending to be the struggling old man who needed help. The truth was worse in a different way. I hadn't betrayed him now. I'd betrayed the version of myself he believed in a long time ago, and I never gave him the chance to decide what that meant. I started the engine. For the first time all evening, I knew exactly what had to happen next. No more silence, no more half-truths. If my son was going to turn his back on me, it wouldn't be because someone else told my story for me. It would be because he heard it from my own mouth. And as I pulled back onto the road, my phone buzzed one last time. This time, it was from Daniel. Just one line. "If there's anything else you've been hiding, you better say it now." I tightened my grip on the wheel. Because there was. And telling him wasn't just going to cost me his trust. It was going to cost someone else everything. I didn't go home. I drove for a while. No direction, just the hum of the road under the tires and that message sitting in my chest like a stone I couldn't swallow. The sky had gone dark by the time I pulled into a quiet lot near the edge of town. An old gas station, half the lights out, one soda machine buzzing like it had something to say. I turned the engine off, and I called him. He answered on the third ring. "What?" Daniel said. Not hello, not dad. Just that one word, sharp, guarded. "I'm ready to talk," I said. Silence, then, "It better be the truth this time." "It is." Another pause. I could hear voices in the background, muffled. Melissa was there. Of course she was. "Say it," he said. So I did. I told him about Linda getting sick, about the nights I didn't sleep, the bills I couldn't pay, the fear that sat in my throat every single day. I told him about Margaret stepping in, about how she helped when no one else could. I didn't dress it up, didn't excuse it. And then I told him about the mistake. It came out plain, quiet, no hiding. On the other end, nothing. No interruption, no questions. Just silence. When I finished, I waited. "You're saying," he finally started, his voice slower now, uncertain. "This was all before Mom died." "Yes. And you've been sending her money all these years because..." "What?" "Guilt." "Partly," I said. "And partly because she needed it. And I knew what it was like to have no one." Another long silence. I could feel something shifting, not forgiveness, but something less certain than anger. Then he asked the question I knew was coming. "Is there anything else?" I closed my eyes. This was the part, the one I'd never said out loud to anyone, not even to myself in a way that felt real. "Yes," I said. His breath caught slightly. "What?" I stared out through the windshield, at nothing. "Margaret didn't just help your mother," I said slowly. "She stayed longer than she should have, because she was pregnant." Silence. Total. I could hear my own heartbeat. "It didn't last," I continued, my voice steady even as something inside me broke open. "She lost the baby before anyone knew. That's why she disappeared for a while back then. That's why I never spoke about it again." "Nothing." "Daniel," I said, but he still hadn't responded. And that silence, it was worse than anything he could have said. "I never had another family," I added quietly. "There was never anyone else but you. Everything I did after that, every dollar I sent, it was about closing something I should have never opened in the first place." The line stayed quiet. Too quiet. "Say something," I whispered. When he finally spoke, his voice didn't sound angry anymore. It sounded empty. "I need to go." "Daniel, I said I need to go." And then the line went dead. I sat there with the phone still pressed to my ear. Long after the call had ended, the world felt still again, like it had that morning. Only now. There was nothing left unsaid, no secrets, no protection, just truth, sitting out in the open where it couldn't be taken back. I don't know how long I stayed there, minutes, maybe longer. At some point, my phone buzzed again. A new message, not from Daniel, not from Margaret. A photo, no text, no explanation, just an image. I opened it slowly, and my breath stopped, because it was my grandchildren sitting at that same dinner table, and the empty chair at the end, where I used to sit, had already been filled. If this story meant something to you, subscribe. There's more to come.